Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and this time we've got the pleasure of watching Soccerzilla playing in the Tier 9 Czechoslovakian medium tank, the Skoda T50. This is the first time this tank has been featured on this channel. However, you might have seen a fairly similar looking tank, and that is the Tier 10 Czechoslovakian medium tank, the TVP T50/51. Now, these tanks are becoming increasingly common on the battlefield for a couple of reasons. One, they've been out for a while now, and that means that people are starting to be able to get to Tier 9. It takes a while to grind up to Tier 9 in World of Tanks, unless you have a lot of free experience to spend. And also, it's become well known that they are devastating vehicles. One of the best Tier 9 medium tanks, kind of like a Tier 9 Batchat. Obviously there is a Lorraine, but this just has a different performing gun, as we're going to see here. Now, it gets this 100mm autoloader, and bizarrely enough, it only has 3 shells in each magazine. Now, these 100mm rounds are pretty much the same as on, say, the Object 140, i.e. they've got 320mm of... Sorry, they've got 320 alpha damage and 248mm of penetration. The penetration a little less than on the Tier 10. That is kind of the weakness of the Skoda design. But the 3 rounds, times by 320, it's obviously going to add up to 960 damage per magazine. That's quite low. That's kind of in the region of the Tier 8 American medium tank, the T69, which gets 4 lots of its 240 rounds. Now, Soccerzilla manages to pick up a good shot there on the T34, and it doesn't look like he's using a fire extinguisher for some reason, and he burns for 508 damage. Meaning that even though Soccerzilla has only put in 2 rounds into his opponents this game, he has already picked up over 1,000 damage. And that poor T34 he really just didn't stand a chance. I have to admit, a tank like this versus a tank like that, who isn't using a fire extinguisher, goodness gracious, poor guy. Now, next contenders, 2 more Tier 8 heavy tanks step up to try and flank. But they're getting distracted by a Leopard prototype that you can see in the J6 area here, and so that allows Soccerzilla to have the perfect flanking opportunity. These are the kind of moments that you need to get in your Skoda T50. Now, you might notice that the tank actually unloads its magazine rather quickly indeed, and that's because the delay between each of the shots is only 1.8 seconds, meaning that you can fire all 3 of your rounds within 3.6 seconds of the first shot. That is some quite devastating DPM. Other tanks, such as the Lorraine, I believe has got about 2.7 seconds aim time. I'll have to look it up if I wanted to know exactly, but it's certainly a lot longer than the Skoda T50, and it's the same for the Batchat as well. A lot of the French tanks, even the AMX-50B, has got 2.5 seconds delay between each of its shells, something that the Skoda tanks don't have. And that allows them to just be absolutely brutal with regards to how quickly they can pick apart their opponents and then pull back and reload their magazine. I'm talking about the reload on the magazine. It's not that long. It's not that bad at all. 22 seconds reload. That's not disastrous. And so that gives this tank a fairly okay DPM, well, if you kind of average out reloading and unloading, of 2,250 per minute. The Skoda T50 really specializes at just dumping out 960 damage and then spending roughly about the next 20 seconds, especially that goes down even further when you start to load T in this tank, the premium consumable. Well, that is a quick way to burn up a lot of your credits, especially if you don't buy them when they're on sale. How many of you guys are starting to run out of consumables? Me personally, I didn't really buy enough of them last time they were on. Now, Soccerzilla has actually loaded some heat rounds in this tank, and this is a very fast way to shoot credits. But I guess he feels like the pressure is on in this situation. Maybe he thought he was going to have to shoot at an OHO or possibly the Jagdtiger at long range, and so that heat clip devastates the front of the enemy Jagdtiger, and some decent rolls there enable him to do 978, finishing off that Tier 9 German tank destroyer. So this game is neck and neck right now, and it kind of develops how a lot of the games on Live Oaks go, with Soccerzilla's team basically taking the southeast flanking round and then hoping to take out the artillery in the enemy base, but the GW Tiger P on the enemy team shuts down an Object 704. That's a very valuable asset. That was the last Tier 10 tank on Soccerzilla's team. kind of brutal to be firing those heat rounds into the GW Tiger P there. But alas, credits is probably the least of Soccerzilla's concern here, as he's already up to 5,482 damage, 4 kills, and there's still a third left on the enemy team, at least with regards to their tanks. And some healthy tanks indeed. E75, OHO, T34, even an AMX 50B. All of those tanks with a good amount of hit points. And if I was in Soccerzilla's position here, I would be starting to smell the possibility of getting an ace tanker. And boy, let me tell you, I've finished my grind with this tank. I think I've played it 100 times, just over 100 times. I get 1,200 average experience per game, I'm averaging 3,000 damage per game, and I'm still on my first class medal. I've never been able to get an ace tanker on this tank, even though I think my best experience is probably about 2,200 with a premium account without a double. That's just not good enough to get your ace tanker in your Skoda T50. And that's because it does have a very high potential of having spiky games. It has a high skill cap as well, which means that the players that are playing it right now have either raced to be able to get there, generally the more active ones in World of Tanks, which are generally also the most practiced and better players. And so the competition in this tank is very steep at the moment. And even though I feel like I've been playing this tank okay, I'm happy with 3,000 average damage at tier 9. That's good enough for me. Still, never an ace. I think the best game I've had in this tank so far must have been about 6,000 damage in a tier 10 game with 4 kills and a bunch of spotting as well. Still not enough. I'll have to just keep plodding along and waiting for the dream. But now that I have my TVP T50/51, my crew have gone into the tier 10 Czechoslovakian medium tank, and my Skoda T50 is waiting for some reinforcements. I'm still trying to unlock a few more female crew members in this vehicle, well, for my tier 10, so that then I can put my standard crew back into this vehicle and keep it going a little bit. So, Soccerzilla's team has now melted, and he's getting into a more and more tricky situation. There's a Leopard prototype who seems to be just chilling around the J6 area again. Wow, the J6 area again. He's not going to do very well. He's on 2 hit points, and he's been flanked down by a Leopard 1 on the enemy team. Soccerzilla's going to use his good view range to spot the E75 and fire 1 shell that completely whiffs. I'm really not sure if that was the sensible option to fire that. All it did was give away his position and allow the enemy to start to close in on him when he's greatly outnumbered here 4-1. So his first priority really has to be to try and take out that Leopard 1 on the enemy team. If we take a look, the Leopard 1 was last spotted with 654 hit points, meaning that it's quite unlikely that he's going to be able to two-shot the tank. Well, not that unlikely. He could just roll slightly high to be able to take him down. He's probably going to have to put all 3 into the Leopard 1, and that's not a good way to put all 3 into the Leopard 1. However, his second roll rolls high, and the third one is enough to finish him off. 352. That is a good roll for a tank with 320 alpha damage. And you literally, with this vehicle, you blink and you miss it, right? That 1.8 seconds delay between the shells is just absolutely brutal. And it's something that you should really take into account when you're engaging these vehicles. Just because they're shooting you a lot, each one of their shells is super important. At least for the T50 with only getting 3 rounds. The T34 just didn't have enough time to aim at the Skoda there. The aim time on that tank rather long, and Soccerzilla getting the jump on him and shutting him down. Now reducing it to fairly more even odds when he's in a 1 versus 2 situation. So when you're fighting this tank, let me give you some tips about how to take it out effectively. 3 rounds. You count them. If he's fired 1, or if he's fired hopefully 2 and missed both of them, then you only have to take 1 more shell for 320 alpha damage, and then you catch him reloading. Also, as you can see here in the bottom left-hand corner, while this tank is rather nippy, its top speed limit isn't exactly incredible for a tank with such good engine power. It's limited to 50 kilometers an hour, which means that it can't exactly run away from you too quickly, and so it's all about trying to bounce maybe 1 or 2 shots from this tank, hopefully the 3rd as well, and then to press your advantage. You should have at least 20 seconds while he's reloading to be able to take him down. Of course, 20 seconds is not enough usually to reduce the tank of all its hit points, but maybe you're going to be able to put 2, maybe 3 shots into him and then pull back, because then he's going to be ready to go all over again. If you do have a lot of hit points against this tank and you're fighting in a 1 versus 1 situation, remember that it's very unlikely that he is going to be able to do more than 1,000 to 1,100 damage to you, unless and if he does, he should really buy some lottery tickets, because rolling for that high when your magazine average is going to be 960, it would be very bad luck for you. And so it's all about finding the tank, pressing your advantage against it, and counting your shots. Now Soccerzilla is trying to find out where the E75 and the Oho was. I guess he presumed that they were trying to chase him round here, but he's trying to cover all of the areas of the map. I guess he's wondering about whether he should cap right now, but that's probably not going to be a sensible option, because this cap circle, let's be honest, is very, very, very open. Unless he hides right at the back here and then runs away as soon as he's spotted his opponent, he's probably going to get caught out. Also, this tank is rather fat. Oh, here we go. And that means that the camera rating is not excellent. So he manages to find the Oho and the E75, Tweedledum and Tweedledee on the enemy team who were in a platoon. And unfortunately, his first shot doesn't go through, and he tries to loop one through the train tracks there, but it doesn't quite work out. You're not able to put a shot through there, Soccerzilla. But I guess he doesn't really mind too much, because he has to just wait for another 20 seconds to reload. Quite often you'll find with these tanks is that they fire one shot, and then if they don't have another opportunity to fire again, then they're going to reload quite quickly indeed. Sitting with only 1 or 2 rounds left in your magazine is a quick way to not be able to do anything in this vehicle. But here we go, Soccerzilla has the back of an E75 here. He puts the first round in, pulls back as he doesn't want to get slam dunked by the Oho. It's quite likely that Tier 8 Japanese heavy tank could be using the 150mm derp gun, and that would remove all of Soccerzilla's remaining hit points in a single shot if it connects. The armor on this tank as well, rather large, not very effective outside of the turret armor. And so, you have to pretty much whiff shells in its general direction, and its gunner will usually die. I lose my gunner all the time in my T50-51 and also the T50 if you manage to penetrate this tank in the turret, which is generally the only thing that you're going to be able to see because they do have 8 degrees of gun depression. So watch out for that as well. Not like the Batchat with only 6 degrees. This thing can work ridge lines. So how's Soccerzilla going to handle this? Well, he just puts 2 casually into the top of the Oho's turret. Those filthy heat rounds there with 310mm of penetration, easily able to counter the thick, albeit flat, Japanese armor. Now he's going to reload an APCR magazine to try and take out the Tier 9 German heavy tank. He's got 45 seconds left on this game, and he's fully reloaded. He's going in. He needs to penetrate all 3 shots, really, if he's going to be able to take out the C75, unless he rolls high. 268, 337. Yes! Slam dunk, needing to do 12 damage with his last shot. 957 damage done with that magazine. That is a low rolling magazine. Still able to take the game down, winning his 1 versus 4 situation, picking up a Radley Walters medal, and getting 9,254 damage in a Tier 9 medium tank. So great game, Soccerzilla here. You were calm, cool, controlled the situation, and used this quite small magazine but rapid reload very effectively to just assassinate enemies one by one. You controlled the engagement, used your mobility to ensure that you made the fight very unequal, and didn't allow them to ever engage you all at the same time, which would have been completely disastrous for a tank that just doesn't have the clout in its magazine to be able to handle multiple opponents, let alone opponents that have more than half of their hit points remaining. And it's very clear to me now to see why it's so darn hard to get an ace tanker in this vehicle, when absolute monsters such as yourself are having great games in high skill cap tanks. Let's just take a quick look at the post-game stats. So what a game here. This was Soccerzilla's first ace tanker in the Skoda T50 with 1,912 base experience points. Absolutely ridiculous. That's enough to get an ace tanker in many Tier 9 tanks if it was a result with premium. But I bet the economy wasn't quite so good. Ouch! 96,000 credits spent on ammunition. This certainly isn't sustainable, but it is probably one of the most expensive tanks to play, considering that each one of those 320 alpha shots does cost you 1,110 credits, and if you elect to fire heat, then you're going to be pretty much firing about 15,000 credits per magazine. Nevertheless, Soccerzilla, congratulations to you on this absolutely gigantic game in the Skoda T50. I just hope that one day I'm going to play as well as you and get my ace tanker as well. And hopefully all of the viewers have picked up some tips on how to take out these incredible increasingly common and dangerous Tier 9 Czechoslovakian medium tanks. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, or maybe it was just useful to you, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And if this video has sparked your interest in the Skoda T50, then simply click through up here and you can go through to a couple of games by me, some heartbreaks, showing you why that sometimes you just can't win them all. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Skoda T50. Do you think that it has any weaknesses? Do you think that it's a balanced tank? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.